The entire city has just lost power. Your lights are dead. Your phone has one bar. Somewhere outside, a transformer is still smoking. And then you flush the toilet. It works. The bowl empties. Clean water replaces it. And for one quiet second, the blackout feels less serious. But where did everything go? That flush has begun a trip through a machine spread beneath the whole city. Most of that machine has no motor. Some of it cannot move without one. And millions of people may keep feeding it while the electricity that protects its weakest points has disappeared. So how long can a sewer keep working in the dark? Which neighborhood fails first? And what has to happen before a perfectly ordinary flush returns through a basement drain, rises from a manhole, or spills into a river? There is no universal countdown. Not 3 flushes, not 1 hour, not even one answer for an entire city. The result depends on hills, pipes, storage, pumps, generators, fuel, rain, and the exact place where your home joins the network. But the chain itself is surprisingly simple. Follow one flush from an upstairs bathroom, through the streets, into a low valley, and finally toward the treatment plant. The moment the lights go out, that invisible journey becomes a race between gravity, storage, and time. The first part of the trip is easy. Wastewater drops through the building's plumbing and enters a smaller pipe called a lateral. That lateral joins a larger sewer beneath the street. The pipe is tilted, so the contents move downhill without a motor, just as water runs along a gutter. Gravity does not black out. If the pipe has enough slope, wastewater can keep moving even when every house above it is dark. That is why your toilet may seem completely normal at first. The flush mechanism used stored water, and the street sewer kept accepting it. Now add your neighbors. Showers stop when electric pumps or water service fail, but not always immediately. Roof tanks, pressure in the water network, and stored water can keep household use going. Hospitals, apartment buildings, restaurants, and emergency shelters may continue sending wastewater too. Small pipes join larger ones. Neighborhood flows merge into trunk sewers and interceptors. On a favorable landscape, the city can carry much of that volume toward the treatment plant by slope alone. The underground map behaves like a tree drawn backward, many small branches feeding one enormous trunk. But cities are not perfect slides. They have valleys, flat districts, tunnels, rivers, highways, and neighborhoods built below the next available pipe. At those low points, gravity reaches the bottom of the hill and asks electricity to continue the trip. Sewage sometimes needs an elevator. A lift station collects incoming flow in a chamber called a wet well. As the level rises, floats or sensors start electric pumps. Those pumps push the wastewater uphill through a pressurized pipe until gravity can take over again. The station may contain 2 pumps, valves, controls, a high-level alarm, and a connection for emergency power. On a normal day, the process is automatic. Level rises, pump starts, level falls, pump stops. Most residents never know the building exists. Then the grid fails. If the station has a working generator, an automatic transfer switch may start it within seconds. If it relies on a portable unit, a crew has to reach the site, connect the equipment, and keep it supplied. If there is no backup, the pumps simply stop. A stopped pump does not create an instant overflow. The wet well still has empty space. So do the pipes leading toward it. That space becomes a temporary battery, except it stores sewage instead of electricity. Every new flush spends a little of the remaining capacity. How long does that battery last? It could be minutes in one place or hours in another. The answer changes with the size of the station, the incoming flow, the hour of day, the weather, and whether anyone upstream reduces water use. The clock is local. Imagine the outage covering an entire metro area. One hillside neighborhood still drains downhill. A second area has a permanent generator humming beside its lift station. A third station is waiting for a portable generator that is currently trapped behind a fallen tree. All 3 clocks started together. They will not expire together. Inside the utility control room, alarms begin arriving. Some stations report a power loss. Others report a rising level. Communications may be damaged too, so silence from a remote site can be more worrying than an alarm. Crews must decide where limited people, pumps, generators, and fuel go first. Which station gets the generator? The largest one, the one closest to a river, the one serving a hospital, or the small station already inches from its high-level alarm? Emergency response is not just repairing machines. It is choosing which consequence to prevent first. Meanwhile, the wet well keeps filling. When the first alarm float rises, the operator knows the normal pumps have not controlled the level. A tanker or temporary bypass pump may remove flow. A generator may restore the station, but every intervention takes travel, setup, access, and fuel. This is where one citywide blackout breaks into dozens of neighborhood-sized emergencies. The electrical map says everyone lost power. The sewer map says some people are still protected, some are borrowing time, and one low area may already be approaching the top. Wastewater follows pressure and elevation, not fairness. As the blocked system fills, the level rises backward through the pipes. The first visible failure is the easiest available exit. That could be an engineered overflow point, a manhole, a low-floor drain, or a basement connection with no working backflow protection. For a family on higher ground, the toilet may still seem fine. A few streets away, a resident hears a gurgle beneath the laundry sink. The drain slows. Then dirty water appears at the lowest opening in the house. The same outage has created two completely different realities. The lowest opening can become the exit. That does not mean every basement will flood, and it does not mean the toilet itself always erupts. It means a full collection system can push sewage toward whatever vulnerable path the local plumbing and terrain provide. If the overflow reaches a street or waterway, the problem leaves private property. Untreated sewage can carry bacteria, viruses, parasites, debris, and chemicals from homes and businesses. Crews may block access, warn residents, collect samples, disinfect surfaces, and report the release. This is why utilities sometimes ask residents to limit flushing, laundry, showers, and dishwashing during a long outage. The request is not theater. Less water entering the network preserves storage and buys crews time, but local instructions always matter more than a universal internet rule. Suppose our flush survives every lift station and reaches the treatment plant. The journey is not over. A modern plant is a sequence of physical, biological, and chemical processes. It removes large debris, settles solids, feeds helpful microorganisms, separates them from the water, and disinfects the final flow. Pumps move water between elevations. Screens and conveyors remove rags and plastic. Blowers force air into biological tanks so microorganisms can consume organic pollution. Mixers prevent solids from settling in the wrong place. Controls measure levels, oxygen, flow, and chemical doses. Electricity is woven through the entire process. A treatment plant is not one switch. Large facilities often have backup power, redundant equipment, storage, and emergency operating plans. But backup capacity may prioritize critical processes rather than recreate a perfect normal day. Operators have to keep the most important barriers alive while conditions change around them. The biological stage is especially strange. The plant is maintaining a living community of microorganisms. Those organisms help clean the water, but many need oxygen and controlled conditions. Stop the air and mixing long enough, and treatment performance can suffer even after the lights return. So the plant faces two pressures at once: less reliable machinery and a sewer system that may still be delivering flow. If collection stations fail upstream, the plant receives less. If they recover together, it can receive a surge. The blackout moves through the network like a delayed wave. Now add rain. In a separate sanitary system, storm drains and household sewage use different pipes. Even then, cracked joints and improper connections can let groundwater and rain enter the sanitary network. That extra water consumes the same storage crews are trying to protect. Older combined systems are different. They intentionally carry sewage and stormwater together. In dry weather, the mixture goes to the treatment plant. During heavy rain, the volume can exceed the capacity of pipes or treatment. Add a power outage, and two emergencies begin pushing on the same system. What fills the pipe first? Household wastewater, rain, or groundwater leaking through old joints? The answer decides which station loses its buffer, where a combined overflow activates, and whether crews can move a portable generator through streets that may already be flooded. The worst place for electrical equipment is often the place where pumping is most necessary, a low point. Utilities can elevate controls, protect generators, use submersible equipment, and install alternate connections. But a backup that is underwater, inaccessible, or out of fuel is only a very expensive object. Still, failure is not automatic. Planning works. Redundant pumps, maintained generators, realistic fuel contracts, portable connections, storage, alarms, trained crews, and mutual aid can turn a potential overflow into an exhausting night that most residents never notice. Resilience is often invisible because success looks like nothing happened. The streetlights blink on, refrigerators restart, the city cheers. Is the sewer fixed? Not necessarily. A lift station may need an inspection before it can run. A tripped control may stay offline. A clogged pump may have failed during the outage. A generator may still be carrying a site whose grid connection is damaged. Crews confirm power, restart equipment, watch the wet well level fall, and check whether the discharge pipe is actually moving flow. Tankers and temporary pumps remain until the permanent system is stable. Remote alarms must reconnect. Sites that went silent need a physical visit. If sewage escaped, recovery expands beyond machinery. The utility documents the release, protects the public, cleans affected areas, samples water when required, and investigates the cause. Homes may need professional cleanup. Parks, yards, streets, or waterways may remain restricted after electricity is restored. Recovery moves upstream. The treatment plant stabilizes. Main pumping returns. Smaller stations empty. Local pipes regain capacity. Only then does the safest answer to "can I flush" become ordinary again. The lights can return in a second. Hydraulic space has to be rebuilt gallon by gallon, and the recovery is uneven. One household never noticed a problem. Another lost a basement. A third followed a conservation notice and helped preserve a few critical minutes without ever seeing the station it protected. Invisible infrastructure creates invisible cooperation too. Our single flush did not reveal one sewer. It revealed several systems layered together. Gravity carried it for free. Electricity lifted it over the landscape. Storage borrowed time. Generators protected selected points. Operators moved limited resources. Treatment turned a public health hazard back into manageable water. So can you flush during a blackout? Often, yes, especially at first. But a working toilet does not prove that every downstream pump is working. During a long outage, watch for official instructions. Avoid unnecessary water use if your utility asks, and never treat sewage in a street or basement as ordinary floodwater. The hidden contradiction is this: your toilet can work perfectly while the system receiving it is already in trouble. The bowl only shows the first few feet of a journey that may cross miles, climb hills, pass through pumps, and depend on fuel stored behind a locked fence. That is the kind of system priced in follows: the ordinary action on the surface and the enormous network quietly absorbing it underneath. A flush feels free and instant because someone designed an entire city to make the difficult part disappear. If this changed the way you see the room around you, subscribe to Priced In, leave a like, and turn on the bell. There are more hidden systems behind everyday life, and we will uncover the next one together.